Welcome to episode 20 of the Today I Am Sober podcast with your host, Liz W. Today I'm joined by a remarkable young man called Jared, who runs a new business called TEL Concierge. Now, I heard about Jared from a friend who'd heard his story through their local newspaper. So I reached out to Jared and said, "Oh my gosh, I love your story. Come join me." And I'm really pleased he did. He's a really fab young man who is rocking recovery. And today he's going to share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Enjoy the show. Today I'm joined by Jared Longhorne, who has set up a business called TEL Concierge. And I'm sure during our conversation, we'll hear all about his business. But the reason I invited Jared onto the show is that he too is in recovery, like I am and like we are. And he's raising money to help other people in recovery get that start again in life. And I thought it would be really interesting to just have a really open and honest conversation with Jared about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. So welcome to the show, Jared.
Thank you, Liz. Good to be here.
And you're coming to us from York, aren't you?
Yes. In York.
I love York. I've got family that live in York. In fact, I'm half Yorkshire because my mum's from South Yorkshire, actually. But that's a story for a different day. I won't tell you the story about how she embarrassed me and herself when we met Michael Parkinson in a restaurant. But that's by the by. So, Jared, when did you realise you had a problem with alcohol?
It was around the end of 2016 is when I started to come to terms that I had an issue. I was always a heavy drinker from when I turned 18 and was allowed to buy it legally. I mean, I drank every night, and it was usually around 4 pints of lager, and I just thought that was normal. But then towards the end of 2016 is when things started to spiral a bit. So the drinking would become more. I wouldn't come home to my now wife. I'd just stay out, find somewhere else to sleep, or I'd come back and apologise profusely so I could stay at home and say it's the last time, and all the usual excuses we as alcoholics and addicts come up with. When my drinking started to get worse, we were expecting our first child, which was a stressful time, I think, because it was unexpected. We were both still quite young, inexperienced, immature, so we had a lot to do in a short space of time. So like kind of the emotions of that and the activities surrounding that, and what we actually had to do in life, like get somewhere to live, make sure we could afford everything, all the usual things that come with being a new parent, it all kind of got on top of me, which it's not the reason for my drinking. I'd never say that, because having Teddy, our son, is the best thing that's ever happened to us.
Aww.
And it's one of the reasons that helped me stay sober today. But it definitely contributed to the way that my drinking was, I'd say.
It's really interesting. You use that phrase, it started to spiral.
Yeah.
And I can completely relate to that, because towards the end of my drinking, it was exactly the same. Things never seemed to get any better.
Yeah.
They just seemed to get worse. The consequences, whilst mine weren't, horrific, emotionally they were bad enough for me. And it got to the, I got to the point that even though I too have a son, and even though, I would profess to you that he is the most important thing in my world, even he couldn't keep me sober. I couldn't stay sober for him.
I couldn't stay sober for anybody. And actually, at the end of my drinking, my most important relationship was with my bottle of Pinot. And actually, anyone that kind of tried to put a mirror up to me and say, Liz, this is a problem, I would just basically tell them to F off in non too polite a way. And my world had become really, really small in terms of the people that I was connected to. I was still working. I still had a job. I was starting to perform really quite badly, but my car was being left in random places like you. I would promise never to do it again. And again, the same thing kept happening. Now, I know that I had a moment of clarity, and I had the gift of desperation, which was what led me to picking up the phone and seeing a psychiatrist who got me into his rehab centre. What was that turning point for you when you realised that, you were not turning up at home when you should have done, your partner's pregnant with your first child, you're trying to build this new life together, yet your relationship with alcohol seemed to be more important?
Yeah. So the actual turning point for me, where I realised that I wanted to change and that I wanted to stop drinking and I wanted to help myself, was actually after I went into rehab.
Oh, that's interesting. So listen, tell us how you went into rehab in the first place.
So when my drinking started to get out of control and things, it was that my relationship with alcohol was more important than my wife or my son. So all the excuses continued to come out. I would spend a couple of weeks sober, but then just go out on a binge and make up for the 2 weeks I hadn't been drinking and things. And that just continued for a good year or something like that. But it was my wife that said, I think you've got a problem with alcohol. So I thought, oh, I'll just agree to this because then it might get them off my back.
Yeah.
Because my parents were worried as well, and they were involved, and they thought it was some sort of, at the start anyway, they thought it was some sort of psychological issue, that I had mental health issues, which I did have. I do suffer from depression and anxiety, but they thought it was much worse because of everything I was doing while I was drinking, getting in trouble with the police and members of the public and things like that. They thought because it was a completely different person to who I was, that it must be something other than the alcohol that was doing it. But so after all of that, I saw doctors and psychiatrists, and I got a CPN, community psychiatric nurse, assigned to me. And he started doing some work with me on mental health and depression and anxiety. And he said, I think you should stop drinking. So I said, okay, I will. I didn't. I carried on. And then he found out I carried on, and he said, right, I want you to go to this abstinence-based treatment program in York with Changing Lives. And it was a 12-week program. You go Monday to Friday, full days, but you get to come home after each day and things like that. So I did it because they told me to do it. I didn't do it because I wanted to go and do it.
Yeah.
So I did the 12-week program. I stayed sober for the full 12 weeks and graduated, and I completed it. And then about 3 weeks after I'd graduated, I didn't take anything that I was supposed to have learned while I was in there. I didn't carry on with meetings. I didn't speak to any peers that I was in there with. I didn't communicate back with the Changing Lives on their continuing care program. I just went back into my old behaviours of lying and deceiving and drinking. to the point of where I did have to move back in with my parents because me and my wife broke up for a short period of time because it I'd just gone back to how I was and just couldn't take it anymore. So I moved back in with my parents, and then there was a period of 2 weeks, I think, where I drank every day, practically all day, apart from when I was napping or passing out, basically.
Yeah.
Whether that be at home or in a pub somewhere. But it was towards the end of that 2 weeks that I realised that I didn't want to do that anymore. That was my rock bottom. I was literally on my own. Nobody wanted anything to do with me. I was living at my parents' house and they didn't even want to speak to me. They didn't come up to check if I was okay and things like that. So all the care from other people had gone. So I was just sat wallowing in self-pity, drinking myself to oblivion type of thing. But then one day I picked up the phone myself to Changing Lives and asked if I could come back in for a chat because I think I need to do the programme again. And then they said, yeah, come in for a chat in 2 days' time. So I had 2 days to stop drinking because I didn't want to go in and have a chat with them while I'd been drinking. I wanted to be sober so that what I was saying was actually the truth kind of thing. I didn't want the drunken head on me to start spouting lies.
Yeah.
So I did that.
I can so relate to your story.
Yeah. It's so when I had them 2 days, I just stopped drinking and just kept drinking water to stay hydrated. But I wasn't very well over them 2 days. I mean, the withdrawal symptoms from it were bad enough that it made me never ever want to feel like that ever again. I mean, I had the shakes, I had the sweats, I couldn't sleep, I was being sick. My vision had gone funny. I mean, it was quite dangerous because I knew that you're not supposed to just stop drinking if you become dependent on it.
I was going to say, let's do a quick health warning here, folks. So if you're drinking a lot and you decide you want to go cold turkey, please seek medical advice because, you know, like Jared has just said, you know, you can get the sweats, you can get the shakes, you have problems sleeping, but it can also kill you. So if you drink really heavily or alcoholically and you need to stop, please seek medical advice before you just stop, because it, as you just said, Jared, it can be really dangerous, and it's, you know, you're really blessed and lucky that you came through the other side because not everyone is so lucky.
No. So I did get sober over them 2 days, and then I went back into Changing Lives and had a chat, and they said, yeah, I think you need to come back on the programme, but what are you going to do differently this time? And I said, well, it's me that's organised to come and have a chat with you. It's not my CPN, it's not my parents, it's not my wife, it's me who's done it. So I'm going to actually do it for me, not anybody else. It's my own choice to come and do it. And that's what they said, really. They can't help you unless you help yourself.
And you know what? That's so true. I was blessed. I had that gift of desperation going into rehab myself. I booked the call. I chose to go in. No one else did it for me. And in fact, my family were really quite cross and very angry about it, my brother in particular. And in fact, there's an episode on this podcast that talks about my brother. I can't remember what number it is. We'll put the link in the show notes. But if you want to hear more about that story with what happened when I went into rehab and how my brother reacted, go listen to that, because I think it's what's really interesting for me is that gift of desperation was really important, but so was the action that I took thereafter. And I had to become really selfish around putting myself first. And I don't know about you, Jared, but I found that really difficult.
Yeah.
Because I'd hurt so many people, I'd upset people. I was away for 28 days in rehab. It wasn't a day program. So I was actually, I literally absented myself from my life and my family, and it was really tough on them. But I knew, I don't know what it was, something inside of me just said, if this is going to work, I have to just throw myself into it.
Yeah.
And is that what you did? Did you, second time around, what was different?
The second time around, I mean, I did throw myself into it, not straight away because my confidence was shattered and my self-esteem was shattered. So I was kind of just, I was taking part within the groups, and I think one of the people that worked there always said I was like a little mouse just at the start, because the first time I did the program, I barely spoke throughout the whole 12 weeks. But then the second time, after a couple of weeks, I came out of my shell, I contributed more, and I thought, right, you're getting somewhere now. You're starting to understand yourself a bit better. You're relating more, you're giving advice back, you're not just taking. This is how it's supposed to work. So I thought, right, we'll throw ourselves into it this time then. So that is what I did, but it was still quite difficult because outside of the program, I knew that I had my son, I had my wife, and we were getting back together again as well, because I said, I'm going back into treatment, I'm going to do it properly this time, and she gave me another chance.
Oh, God bless her.
And
You're really lucky, actually, because I know so many people who've kind of used up all of their chances.
Yeah, I think if I hadn't done it the second time, I wouldn't be with her today. And she's been the most supportive wife anybody could ask for, I think. I mean, to stick by me through, we've been together, it's over 3.5 years now, I think. And for everything at the start of our relationship to happen in such quick succession, for her to stick by me through the rest of the time, even though the way I was behaving, I mean, she needs a medal or something like that.
But give her a great big gold star.
Yeah.
Oh, God bless her. And I think, I think it's really important that we recognise that you know this. I mean, I'm talking to the choir here, that we hurt people when we're drinking. And, I'm really blessed that I've been able, in the time that I've got sober, to repair those relationships. But the only way I've been able to repair them is by being sober. The minute I pick up a drink, all bets are off, even after a number of days. My family are all, I'm 6 and a bit years sober, and my family are still, like, at Christmas and at social occasions where there's wine or booze around, are like, are you all right? You don't mind if we drink, do you? And I'm like, no, look, I don't care if you drink, as long as I don't pick up a drink, we're absolutely fine. But it takes time to get to that point. So it sounds really easy to say that you got back together with your wife, you did the 12-week program. And I completely get that this time, the second time around, you were 100% invested in it for you. What else had changed other than that desire to change?
I think, I know it's a bit of a fob you off answer, but I think everything had changed. I think through the time before I went into rehab the second time, while I was drinking, I had a hell of a lot of time to myself to think. So it was like I was just going through everything in my adult life that's happened and that I didn't want or that didn't work. I was trying to figure out things that I could change so that when I did come out of the other end, that I knew what needed to continue to change for me to stay sober, if that makes sense.
Completely. And what were some of those things that you knew needed to change and you needed to continue to do to keep you sober? Because you and I both know it's all well and good getting sober, it's the staying sober that's the hardest part.
Well, one of the main things to change was parts of my attitude in life. I mean, it took me well, 2 times in rehab to realise this, but I'm incredibly stubborn and selfish, and I could show childlike tendencies.
Me too.
And because I was that stubborn, I would ignore when anybody told me I was stubborn. I'd say, no, I'm not. I'm completely easy. Do you know what I mean? So when I realised that it was actually true, that I was stubborn and childlike, and I lacked a lot of empathy as well. And once I realised all of those things, then I realised that that was one of the things that I needed to change to become sober. But there's all other aspects of life that I needed to change as well. I needed to change where I worked, because that was a lot of stress and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. It was a bit of a trigger for me, because I used to go and drink on my lunch, and
Me too.
because that was a way of getting out of the house, I was able to go to work, go for a drink on my lunch, and then go for a drink on the way home. I wasn't being watched. I could do what I wanted, type of thing. So I knew that needed to change. I knew that I had a lot of responsibilities, like my son and things like that, but I had a lot of personal responsibilities that I needed to look after as well. I mean, financially, my finances were pretty much in ruin, which happens to a lot of people in addiction and alcoholics and things, because you stop caring about things. The only thing you care about is where the next drink's coming from, or where the next fiver's coming from, so you get the drink. And even if you're financially ruined, you find a way to get that fiver. It doesn't matter how or where or when, or you'll find it. So I knew that needed to change. And just when you're in treatment, I think that you have light bulb moments, and they were my favourite thing about being in treatment. Even if I didn't like the light bulb moment, I still felt really good afterwards, that it kind of pinged in my head. Like if somebody would say to me, Jared, do you think you're a little bit stubborn? And then I would pause before I answered, because I'd think about it, and then they might give me an example of something, and it could be something that I said 2 minutes prior to the question being asked to me. But it's just, and then I'll have that light bulb moment of thinking, oh my God, yes, I am incredibly stubborn.
And my experience was really similar, that I found treatment a bit like being in front of a mirror all day long. Every single time I said something, someone would challenge me on it, and I was challenged on who I really am. And there were parts of me, personality traits of mine, that actually I don't like particularly, or I didn't like particularly. But I also realized that inside of me was a really scared little girl. It was probably about 5 years old, who just needed looking after and needed a hand holding. And she was really scared. She was really nervous. And she was really sad. And I kind of, it sounds really woo to say this. It wasn't, but one of my light bulb moments was recognizing that scared little girl and learning how to look after her and tell her that it's going to be okay, and that it's all right. It's going to be okay now. We've got this. It's not going to be how it was anymore. So let's fast forward. So you get out of rehab.
Mm-hmm.
You're repairing the relationship that you have with your wife. Your little boy is little.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you decide, I know, I'm going to start my own business?
It was 2 weeks into rehab that I decided I was going to do it.
Second time round?
Yeah, it's the second time round.
Okay, and was that because you realised that your job at the time was enabling you to go to the pub at lunchtime, to have a quick half on the way home, and it was all wrapped up with your drinking days. Was that part of the reason?
Yeah, it was part of the reason, but I'd always, from a young age, been fascinated with being an entrepreneur and watching Dragon's Den and things like that. I was always trying to come up with quirky ideas that nobody had thought of before, and then found out there was a reason why nobody had thought of it before, because it was a terrible idea.
I love your honesty.
Well, it's true.
So tell us about your business then. So tell us what you're doing today.
So we call it personal concierge because it is like what a concierge does in a hotel for guests, but we do it for individual people in everyday life. So it's
Ooh.
sort of like lifestyle management is a nice phrase that I like to use, because we help you manage your lifestyle, really.
Ooh.
So,
I'd love to have a lifestyle to manage. So tell me some of the things in my lifestyle that you could manage for me, Jared.
well, it's like we're able to do pretty much everything that we've been asked to do so far. So it could be if you're working long hours and you don't have a lot of time, we can get your food shopping in for you, and we can deliver it ourselves and put it away in the right places in your house. We can organise pet sitters, or we can come and check up on your pets if you needed while you were out at work. We can book theatre tickets, like you said, or we can find you tradespeople that you might need in your house, like your plumbers, your electricians, joiners, etc. We can plan events if you're holding a birthday party for you or your children or your partner. We can organise the event for you. We do gift buying as well. So if you don't have time to go out and buy somebody a gift, we'll go and do it for you. But the service itself becomes really personal. So we get to know our clients. So if we know that in their family they've got a birthday coming up, we will remind the person that hires us and say, would you like us to go and buy a gift for your daughter? We know that she's going to be 13 this year. This is what 13-year-old girls like. Does she like any of these? And we'll go get something tailored to that person. But the range of services, it can literally go from getting food shopping or ringing the doctors to make an appointment, waiting in for parcels, all the way up to booking a holiday to a luxury destination and everything in between.
Oh, that just sounds simply joyous. Listeners, I don't know about you, but I would love, love, love to have someone do all of my life admin, because it just takes up so much time, doesn't it? I mean, my goodness, working full time and running a house and running a family, it's a lot of work. And the feminist in me is going to come out here at the minute, because I often joke that what most women that work need is a house husband, because I come from a generation where my mum was at home for the majority of my childhood, and she ran the house. There was always food on the table. We were really blessed. The clothes were always clean. We ate dinner at 5:30 every night. She ran the house like clockwork. And when I started working and I had to do those things for myself and my family, it was impossible trying to fit everything in. And I just think it's brilliant that you found a gap in the market for really busy people that need support to enable them to live the life that they want to. Because I imagine what's in it for your clients is they get their time back, don't they?
Exactly. We're basically selling them time.
Yeah.
So they could pay us for 30 hours a month work, and they would get a spare 30 hours a month to do what they wanted to do in that time.
Oh God, I wish you could give me 30 hours a month back. So listen, if you want to find out more about Jared's business, we'll put the link in the show notes below. It's, if you're listening on Apple Podcast, it's literally below. If not, you can find it on the website todayimsober.co.uk. So that man that walked into that treatment centre, it was changing lives, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Second time around, when you knew that you were done, that something had to give, you'd been sat on your self-pity pot, your words, not mine, and you were you were done with the drinking. Do you recognise that man today?
I purposely try to recognise him. I mean, I don't recognise him in who I am today. I recognise him as a completely different person. Because I don't want to get rid of the thought of that person, because that helps me stay sober as well. Remembering what it was like back then, and when I look at the person, I feel sorry for them. I have empathy for them. I have sympathy for them. But it's because I can see myself back then that helps me today as well.
And I love that, especially because you said that when you went in the first time, you had no empathy whatsoever. And it just goes to show how much we can change, you know, once we put the drink down and have a good look at ourselves. Because I don't know about you, my change had to come from within, and really looking in. And sometimes it was painful, but my God, on the other side is just incredible. And I also, you know, I completely 100% agree with you that you have to remember where you were, to remind you not to go back there, but also to recognise how blessed you are for where you are today. I have this phrase, and I'm sure I heard it in recovery rooms, that I have to play the tape forward. So now that works for people who remember tape players and cassettes, but it's a bit different in digitally these days with all this tech. But basically, you know, if I were to pick up a drink today, I just need to play forward what's going to happen. Well, it's quite easy. I'll have an argument with my husband. I'll probably storm off. I'll probably get my car keys out because I'll run out of booze and I'll want some more. I'll then probably crash the car. And then before you know it, I'm in a police cell. It's quite simple. I just play that tape forward of what happens if I pick up a drink. And that hadn't happened to me prior to my stopping drinking. It's yet to happen to me. And I know that I've got a load of yets. You know, I'm yet to end up losing my license. I'm yet to end up physically harming somebody. Emotionally, I did lots of emotional harm, but physically harming someone, that was a yet for me. And I love the fact that, like you said, I'm no longer that woman I was when I was drinking. It's not me, but it's where I could go again, should I pick up a drink. So listen, one of the way that how I found you, Jared, the internet is a wonderful thing, is that I saw an article in the York Press. In fact, a girlfriend sent it to me, about how you're trying to raise money to help other people in recovery. So can you tell us a bit about that and how that works and how our listeners can get involved?
Yeah, of course. Well, when I wanted to start up the business itself, the eventual aim was to always give something back to the community, the recovery community, because I know some people just take, and that's fine if it works for you, but because I learned how to not be selfish when I was in rehab, I wanted to give back. But I want people to be able to feel like they can move forward, they can go back to work, they can earn money, they can sort the finances out and things like that. So my idea behind the business is, once it is a year old, then I would need to start employing staff. Why can't those staff that I employ be people in recovery that need to get back into work?
And why not indeed? I think that's a blooming brilliant idea.
The idea is to employ people that have either just come out of treatment and they're a bit worried about starting to go to work, or it's people that have been in recovery for a while. It's anybody in recovery that would like to work with me or need help getting back into work. I mean, they don't have to come and work for me forever. They can come and work for me for a month or 2 months, just to help them get back into the swing of things. But the idea behind it is that you're coming into an environment of work that is safe, you're with like-minded people, there's support there. I'll be there if people need to talk about any issues they've got, or they just want a general chat about recovery, or They want to know a bit about me. And because we're starting our own little community in the office, it'll be like they can talk to each other. They can make new friends that are in recovery, which they might not have been able to do before, and things like that. So that's what we're raising the money for, is to enable us to have the resources and the office space and things like that to do that, and then for it to grow.
Jared, I think that's absolutely brilliant. So what we'll do is, if you'd like to support Jared and Tell Concierge in what they're trying to achieve, there's a crowdfunding link in the show notes below so you can get involved. One final question from me, Jared. What would you say to somebody that was just starting out on their journey in sobriety about what it's like at the other side?
In my life, I love my life now. I didn't before. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who it would be with. And then since August 16th, 2018, which is my sobriety day, every day just seems to have got better and better. Or there's something in the day that's been better than the day before. I mean, I've been able to watch my son grow up. He's now 2.5.
That's a beautiful age. 2.5.
When they don't sleep, it's not.
I'd forgotten that bit.
I was able to marry my wife. We got married in December, just gone last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm now able to start giving back to people that either need help, that want to give help, or the people that actually helped me in the past. There might be people that I've met on the journey so far that want to come and give back to. So
fantastic.
The way I would see it is that if you start your recovery journey and things, you'll learn to love yourself again. You'll learn to like yourself first, and then you'll learn to love yourself. And then once you do that, then you will definitely feel blessed at how your life is going.
And on that note, Jared, it's been an honour and a privilege having you on the show. I wish you and your wife and your little boy every success with your new business, and that you turn it into a roaring success so you can help even more people in recovery. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Liz. It's been lovely speaking to you.
Oh, you too. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Today I Am Sober podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I love your feedback. So come and find me on social media. All of the links are in the show notes. Until next time, bye.